Piers Morgan presses Richard Dawkins for 10 minutes straight about God. If you didn't know who Richard Dawkins is, he's arguably the most famous atheist out there. And Piers Morgan has been doing interviews for a very long time. He's been canceled and uncanceled and canceled and uncanceled a bunch of times. And so these two collide for what at first seemed to be a friendly conversation, but then as it went on, right out the gate, it got pretty tense. And so we're going to be looking at the entire exchange, and Piers Morgan surprisingly holding it down for those of us who are theists or believe in God. But before we get into that, guys, if you could do me a solid, please smash that like button. It really does help out a ton. Let's jump right into it. We're going to be looking at about the 55 minute mark, and this is a very interesting conversation. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Let me slow that down. Okay, so here we go. Richard Dawkins versus Piers Morgan on religion and gender. You really should check out the whole exchange here, but it was very fascinating. So check this out.
I'm going to come more to this because I think the whole cancel culture, woke kind of world we live in is a fascinatingly disturbing one, and you've got strong views on it. But I want to start because you're known as one of the world's big thinkers.
By the way, the way he set this up is actually genius, because he starts about being challenged and thinking and all these sorts of things, and then he kind of sets him up for like, well, people should be challenged with ideas they're not comfortable with, and then look where he takes it.
I want to start with some big theme stuff. And I guess there's no bigger theme than evolution itself. And I think I'd ask a question like this. What do we know now about where we've come from, and what don't we know?
Okay, we know once you've got a self-replicating entity, which nowadays is DNA, but it wasn't originally, once you've got life started, once natural selection, Darwinian natural selection has got going, then we pretty much understand the 4 billion year history of what's given rise to us and all other living creatures. We don't know how it started, and that's still a mystery, and it may always be a mystery, because it happened a very long time ago, and we may never know exactly what did happen. We know the kind of thing it had to be.
What kind of thing do you think it was?
It was the origin of a self-replicating molecule, a molecule that makes copies of itself. DNA is such a molecule, but the original one was almost certainly not DNA, because DNA is it's been called a high-tech replicator.
Think about how preposterous what he's saying is. A self-replicating DNA molecule. Okay, so that is how he's saying the universe began. A self-replicating DNA molecule. This is totally a trap.
There had to be a precursor to DNA. Something, the laws of chemistry gave rise to a molecule which had this unusual property of making copies of itself, which mutated, changed in random ways, and that gave rise to competition between rival versions of it, and that gave rise to the whole panoply of life eventually.
Okay.
You guys think I'm stupid. I'm not stupid, guys. I know this.
This is amazing.
So I'm a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. So I'm a really...
Piers is going in for this at 4 minutes into this interview. It's an hour-long, 45-minute long interview. Straight out the gate, Piers Morgan is going for it.
...religious person, which I know is anathema to you, and we'll come to that. But my arguments with atheists, historically, have always come down to one thing, and maybe you've got an answer which will persuade me of the folly of my ways, which is this. What was there at the start?
We don't know. But
we don't know.
I don't know, and you don't know.
But no human brain, unless you want to correct me, can actually comprehend nothingness, right?
No, but it's a fallacy to think that because I don't understand how it happened, therefore God did it. I mean, that's just weak.
Well, no, okay, but I'm prepared to have an open mind about this.
Yes.
But somebody did, and I just have never...
I'm prepared to have an open mind about this, but somebody did. Somebody had to have put this entire thing into forward progression for us to be here.
...better human brain that can explain to me what happened before, say you go for the Big Bang argument. What was there before?
By the way, he doesn't sound convinced on the Big Bang argument, too. Say you go for the Big Bang argument. What happened before?
What does nothing look like?
Physicists are debating this. I'm not a physicist, but they're debating it. My point is that they don't know, and I don't know, and you don't know, and it doesn't help to postulate a God that did it.
But you're certain it's not a God, and yet you admit you don't know.
No, I'm certain that it doesn't help to postulate something very complicated at the outset, because what we've got is primeval simplicity. And from that stems everything.
He just said self-replicating DNA and then said, well, you don't want to say it's something complicated like God. Sounds like a bit of a contradiction if you ask me.
And what science does, it starts with simplicity, which is relatively easy to understand. And from that, it develops into the whole of the universe and the whole of life. It doesn't help to start with complexity. And a creator has to be complex, whatever
But
else he
the
is.
reason that I subscribe to the theory there must be a more powerful being out there than anything the human race has created is because, like I say, a human brain can't comprehend nothingness or what may have come before nothingness. We can't. We're not able to extrapolate what that is, right? I mean, no scientist can explain nothingness, can they? Plausibly.
Well, maybe they can't. You'd have to talk to a physicist. But even
Could you explain it?
No, I'm not a physicist. But
Real quick, I got to show you something.
Hey, you want to see something crazy? Over 51% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed. And the ones that are subscribed, only 10% have their bell notification on. So do me a favor, please hit that subscribe button, turn the bell notification on so you don't miss anything we have going here. All right? I appreciate you.
All right, let's jump right back in.
No, but you're a very smart guy, and you're a very vehement atheist.
No, I'm not
and you're-
that vehement.
Well, you're pretty vehement. I mean, you just think all belief in all gods is ludicrous, right?
I think that it doesn't help to introduce complexity at the outset. That's my
No, I get that, but
No, well, I don't think you do get it.
well, no, I do because but you're asking me to consider that my own belief in a deity that may be above human thinking and understanding and brain power that was there universally, that my theory is scientifically flawed. Whereas I would throw back at you, okay, but I need to be given an alternative. I need some scientist somewhere to explain to me, right, 4 billion years, all right, but then what was there before that?
Well, scientists can't answer that, and what they say is things like it's like going north of the North Pole. I'm sure. I gather you recently introduced Stephen Hawking. He probably said that to you.
Yeah, he did actually, yeah.
But the point is this: science can explain things starting with simplicity and working up to complexity.
No, I get that, but where science can't explain something, i.e. in the case I just gave you, is it not possible that you're all wrong on the atheist side?
Is it not possible that you're all wrong? That's such a great question. Because naturally, the scientific consensus is tending to make things sound more sophisticated. And oftentimes, kind of speaking beneath people at times. Not all the time, not all scientists, right?
Of the argument.
We could be all wrong. But what
Is it not possible that you're all...
First of all, and kudos to Dawkins for acknowledging that we could be all wrong. Listen,
all wrong on the atheist side of the argument?
we could be all wrong. But what
I mean, he says it too. We could be all wrong.
And you might get a shocking surprise one day when you're no longer with us.
You might.
And you discover we were right all along.
it's possible.
Do you
Highly
concede it's
unlikely.
possible?
It's highly unlikely.
But you don't know, though, do you?
No, of course I don't. Scientists take a pride in admitting what they don't know. And they don't know what happened before the Big Bang. They don't even admit that the word before means anything with respect to the Big Bang.
Yeah.
Physicists will tell you.
But it has to. I mean,
Well, it doesn't, because that's a naive statement. Physicists will say that you do not have to say there was a time began in the Big Bang, is what some physicists will say.
Yeah, but to which I immediately respond with
I
my
know you
basic
do.
human brain. Well, okay, if time began, when did it begin?
Well, quite.
And what was there before?
Quite.
Which is a fairly obvious question.
It is a very obvious question. It's too obvious, and physicists will tell you there will be none.
It's too obvious. It's too obvious of a question, and therefore I can't give you any answers.
Naive.
Yeah, but they don't know why I'm being naive, because they can't provide
The human
any
brain
actual
is, as
scientific
you've
evidence.
just said, the human brain is not capable of grasping
Right, that's
these
my
things.
point. So
Yes.
why is it not possible that there is a superior being, power, which many people believe in different
It's
ways?
possible there are
different
fairies
types
at the
of
bottom
God.
of the garden, and all sorts of things are possible. you can't deny that.
Well, except I've never seen fairies in the garden. Have you?
No, you've never seen God either.
No, but you don't know for sure that either doesn't exist.
No, I don't know that fairies don't exist. Fairies may be leprechauns, for all I know.
Do you accept? Have you got milder about this as you've got older?
Yes.
Have you got more accepting that you may be wrong? Less certain?
Well,
Yo, Piers is not letting up. Have you gotten more accepting that you might be wrong? What a great question.
yes, of course, a scientist may always be wrong, and that's definitely a thing that a scientist has to say. But I'm not vehement. You're provoking me to be vehement because you're taking that tone with me.
Well, you've been provoked before,
Yes.
and you've been quite vehement in response. I'm actually not trying to provoke you. I'm genuinely curious.
Yes.
Because I don't have all the answers, but I'm always sceptical of people who think they do. I don't think you do.
Absolutely not.
But your admission that you don't have all the answers to me is quite interesting because it lends the possibility you might be wrong.
Well, it's not interesting. I mean, no scientist has all the answers.
How is this not interesting? How is this not interesting? If there is a superior being that created this world and humans and animals and science and chemistry and order, How is that not interesting?
Answers. But the one thing you shouldn't say is that because I don't know, therefore God did it. That's a
What do you think
cowardly
happens when you die?
As Bertrand Russell said, I believe that when I die, I shall rot, and nothing of my ego shall remain.
That's it.
Yes.
The end. Nothing. There's nothing else.
How could it be otherwise? I mean, you have a brain, an evolved brain, which works by nerve impulses, and when that decays, what could possibly be left?
So you don't believe in, for example, a spirit or a soul? None of that that's all conditional entirely on a link to an actual cerebral.
Yes, if by spiritual soul you mean something that outlasts the brain, then I do not believe in it. No.
Really?
I mean, listen, I don't really know what else is there to say. This goes on for a little while longer. Then they get into all kinds of other stuff about queer theory and gender ideology and all kinds of wild stuff, which actually Dawkins takes a pretty good stance on, in my opinion. He doesn't seem like he's all the way out there on just some of the basic biological stuff, the scientific stuff. He's really solid, but this goes on, and he basically admits that, well, there is no soul, that we just have highly evolved brains, and then they talk about out-of-body experiences. But in all of it, I find it extremely interesting that Piers Morgan, one, was bold enough to lead with this conversation, press him about this conversation, to be very direct with him about this conversation out the gate in this interview. Two, I appreciate, believe it or not, Richard Dawkins' humility in saying that we don't know. I wish that same exact humility would be extended by all atheists, and that it wouldn't be something that is spoken of as if there is certainty, as if they do know, because they don't know. Right? Now, as a follower of Jesus, I see the resurrection. I place my faith in the forgiveness of my sins by placing my faith in Jesus. I confess with my mouth, I believe in my heart. And what I do know, I may not know how old the universe is. I may not know, when did humans live with dinosaurs or not live with, I may not know those questions. But I do know that when I place my faith in Jesus and I placed my trust and my confidence in him, that something supernatural happened, that something beyond the material happened inside of my heart, that it wasn't just a placebo, that it wasn't just mass hallucination, that there was something that it sparked new desires and other desires all of a sudden I lost, and I became a new person. I became born again. And I do know that part. And through my faith in Jesus and the resurrection and that part, I can then look through my whole life and see the providence of God over my entire life. And that is what faith is. Faith is a trust, a confidence in God is who he says he is. And I would hope that those folks who are on team Richard Dawkins would be this self-aware in terms of discussing these sorts of topics. And so if you guys want to see another video where Ben Shapiro gets pressed in the same manner by one of the leading apologists, Dr. William Lane Craig, we'll have that pinned up over here. If you want to go the extra mile, partner with us to make sure that we can continue contextualizing the gospel through media, consider doing that here for as little as $5 a month. I'll see you over there. Peace.